Hey guys, this is Plague Wayne here for the next mission. This is the recap of the previous mission when we was in the tunnels. And so here's where we left off. Clove, who was the survivor, had awakened. He wasn't sure of where he was and how he had actually survived the battle. When he crawled out of the tunnel, all he knew was that he was by himself. And he had to get back to the Imperial Fortress. As he started his journey back, he started to re-envision about the battle that occurred. He remembered being in base to contact with Terminator units of the dreaded Chaos. He was unsure how he was going to survive this ordeal. And he remembered burning from the blades that had hit his flesh and penetrated his armor, and that he still had a burning in his arms and legs, and definitely in his chest. He could feel his body starting to heal from the wounds, but he knew he had a long way to go to get back to the Imperial Fortress. As he looked over the horizon, he could see the Imperial Fortress ahead, and he knew he was closer to safety. Here he saw the Imperial Fortress and was about to get ready to enter the gates. And when he arrived, he was challenged by the sentries asking about who he was and where he came from. He replied and let them know that where he had came from and what had occurred. And so he was led away by his escorts into the fortress. As Clove was going down the hallway inside the Imperial Fortress, he was greeted by none other than Belial, who greeted him as a long-lost brother and says, "Brother, you've made it. I didn't think you was going to survive the ordeal. We are truly sorry that we had to abandon you during that time, but we really didn't have a choice. We had to get to see the power out. That was our main focus." Clove understood the ordeal, and he also knew that the mission always came first. But yet he was still happy to see his long-lost brother. As Belial was talking to Clove and debriefing him about what actually occurred, Clove looked up and saw that there was a War Council meeting that was being held. He saw Captain Sicarius of the Ultramarines 2nd Company. He also saw, to his amazement, members of the Death Wing, and he was for sure that he actually saw the Grand Master himself, Belial, and his second in command, Trion. And he was also looking up and saw the holographic image of none other than the Great Wolf, Logan Grimnar. He wanted to stay and actually listen to it, but Belial told him, "You have to be led to the infirmary and get debriefed. And after that, we need to tend to your wounds. You'll be able to go back into battle soon enough. But for right now, you need to be tended to. And until we can actually get your squad reformed, you will stay here in the palace and you will help guard and perform other duties." Clove understood this and he nodded and he started heading off to the infirmary. As the holographic image began to come into view, the Great Wolf himself, Logan Grimnar, and his entourage looked on from his battleship. And inside the War Council hall, there also stood the Grand Master of the Death Wing, Belial, Tyrion, his second in command, commander of the Death Wing, and also Captain Sicarius was there. And now that Miravis was dead, Cannoness had became his second in command, was also present. One of his most trusted advisors, Trajan, was there, as well as his bodyguard. And not to be outdone, Cannoness Amon showed up, and she wanted to try to be perceived as prestigious as her other two so-called comrades. She brought Whitner and a few of her sisters to accompany her. As they stood, the great wolf began to speak. I need a status report of what's going on Prime. Captain Sicarius then began to speak. My lord, the second company has been decimated. I am now bringing in reinforcements. I'll be able to bring in an additional 30 Marines. I'm also getting assistance from a unit from the Nova Marines. I have 2 Devastator units, 2 assault units of Terminators, 2 Dreadnoughts, and I also have 2 assault units. But that is all that I have at this side, my lord. I also have some Flyers, I have some Talons, but that is about all I have. The great lord nodded, understanding what had happened. I understand what has happened to your great company, and we will avenge it. Grandmaster Belial, it is good to see you again. And as well as I, my lord. As you can see, I've also brought the wing with me. We will assist in this affair. What are your orders, my lord? The great wolf looked over. He knew, due to his status, that he was the closest thing to a Primarch, which commanded the respect of both his 2 fellow Adeptus Astartes. Amon wanted to speak, but the great wolf just looked at her. She knew her place in this affair. She was being allowed to attend this War Council, and nothing more. She would only speak unless spoken to. The great wolf then acknowledged his 2 brothers. Brothers, I am approaching the planet as we speak, and I should be arrived shortly. I should be within the atmosphere within the next hour or so. I won't be able to bring down anyone except I'll send an advance party to assist in anything that's going. Captain Sicarius, what else is going on as well as Prime? Well, my lord, we lost several of my fellow soldiers had died, but we were able to capture the chair. Currently, Cannoness Amon has been looking in the archives, and she may have discovered something. The great wolf then looked at Cannoness and then asked her, so what have you discovered? The Cannoness then, knowing that she's being allowed to finally be allowed in the meeting, began to speak. My lord, and she knew she had better use that title in this certain circumstances, for she had no power here. My lord, again she says, I've looked into the archives, and based upon the seat of power of Horn, we have discovered that there is actually another artifact on this planet. It is known by many names, but it's for our tongue, it is known as the Key of Nurgle. The Key of Nurgle, says the great wolf. What does that actually mean? We're not sure yet, my lord, replied Amon. However, I can tell you this, that its last location was next to what has been described by the locals as the Orc Village. It is a remote area and has been abandoned for years. It had many different battles that would occur there, and we believe that there may be a clue to actually where the key is. But that's all that I know so far. The great wolf then replied that this is great news to hear. We need to find that artifact and find out what else is Chaos up to. Grandmaster Belial, what do you have to say in this matter? The Grandmaster then looked at the great wolf and said, my lord, we're here to assist. We also understand that there are many different things that are occurring on this planet and that our assistance is greatly needed. Belial then looked at Tyrion and they both nodded. They also knew that there was another reason why they were here, a more important reason for them. There is rumor that there are several members of the Fallen here, and they aim to make sure that they were captured and brought to justice. But that knowledge was only amongst themselves. They would not give that information to no one, not even the great wolf. Logan Grimnar knew that there was more to that answer, and he also knew that the Deathwing always had another agenda up their sleeve, but he chose to ignore it this time. Very well. Let's go forward. Let's send a party out to the Orc village and get this addressed. We need to find that artifact at any cost. I've also heard that there was a survivor underneath the tunnels. Is that true? Grandmaster Belial said yes. One of my own has been recovered and is currently being aided to in the infirmary. He's also been debriefed. All he could tell us is that he had engaged with chaos and had fought valiantly, and that's all he can remember. Very well. Logan Grimnar did not really like the news of how one of the survivors was allowed to live. Something suspicious was going on, but at the moment, he just listened to it and then agreed. Very well. Let's go on. Let's send a party out to this remote area, this orc village you described, and I will send assistance. This meeting is adjourned.